Hey, so I'm giving you a little prelude to this episode. When I originally filmed this episode, which was only, you know, which was not long ago at all, um, I hadn't had certain understandings and experiences. I recently have found out that some family members of mine unknowingly were practicing an occult like rituals, and they that wasn't their intention. They were a part of an organization that participated in that. We have since prayed and renounced a lot of those particular things. And I'm not a leading expert on generational curses or lineages or anything like that. I will say there are great minds on both sides of the aisle who think about these things. Some who don't think it's something we need to worry about, that the cross takes care of it all, and some who would say that there is still demonic oppression that can happen even after we are believers, and that we need to cut those ties. So this is not a message saying I recant what you're going to watch. This is a message saying I'm far more nuanced and God is still working on me even now. So I hope this episode blesses you and gives you some food for thought.
They're not praying to the same God. They literally pray to goddesses.
So it looks like instead of God, the members are pledging their heart, mind, and strength to AKA
Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. This is the fraternity that Lecrae is.
There's a lot of hoopla about historically black fraternities and sororities. I got brands on me, so I pledged. No spooky hocus pocus thing happened when you went through your initiation process that the blood of Christ cannot deal with. I think we're just not consistent. Nike is the goddess of victory. So why are you wearing Nikes? We're all walking around worshiping the goddess of victory. I just want you to know that. Have you been to a sports game? If that's not worship, I don't know what is. But as I began to get a little more serious about my faith, I felt conflicted. Not because I thought I had joined myself to some sort of supernatural sect or demonic oath or brotherhood, but more so because
this is The Deep End with Lecrae.
We going brick for brick. We going brick for brick. We going brick for brick. Stack it up, stack it up, stack it up. Stack it up, stack it up, stack it up. Stack it up, stack it up, stack it up. Stack it up, stack it up, stack it up. Him. It's problems with.
So if my son or daughter came to me and said, Dad, I'm thinking of joining a fraternity or sorority, what would I say? I'd probably say no, but not for the reason you think. I do think that there is a lot of thought that should be put into fraternities and sororities. Now, currently in the culture, there's a lot of hoopla about historically black fraternities and sororities, right? You don't hear this same kind of dissension and division over fraternities and sororities that our white brothers and sisters are a part of in the Christian community as much as you do in the black community. And I think there's some reasons for that. So if you look online, you'll see tons of dissension about should people be denouncing their historically black fraternities and sororities. And when I see that pop up now, I find it interesting. The reason why I find it interesting is because it's almost like a trend. I've been a Christian, oh my goodness, over 2 decades now. And I've seen this come and go at least 3 times in the 20 years that I've been walking with Jesus. The first wave where people were saying, man, you shouldn't be a part of this. You should denounce this. The second wave, I was actually a part of, being an influence in. And that was after I myself had joined a historically black fraternity. I joined Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated many, many moons ago. And in joining the fraternity, I can say my motives were probably much different than most people's motives when going into a fraternity or sorority. My motive was definitely more about validation, more about, having a sense of self-worth and being connected to a family, because I was coming from a broken family. I do think there are, and because I had frat brothers, people who joined to be a part of a civic organization, who wanted to do good in the community and who wanted to take part in being leaders and grow as a leader. And I will say that in my undergrad time as a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, I learned a lot. I learned Robert Rules of Order. I learned how to conduct a business meeting, a board meeting. I learned so much. I learned how to organize, how to market, how to coordinate. I learned tons from that particular time in my life. But as I began to get a little more serious about my faith, I felt conflicted. I felt conflicted about remaining a part of this organization, not because I thought I had joined myself to some sort of, supernatural sect or demonic oath or brotherhood, but more so because the lifestyle that I was living with a handful of my frat brothers it did not mesh with trying to walk with Jesus. That's not to put any blame on the organization. That's not to put any blame on my brothers. It's just to say that, being a member of Kappa Alpha Psi facilitated a lot of opportunities that were not healthy for me. The fact that there were tons of young ladies who were interested in a man just because he was in a fraternity was a lot for me to handle. The fact that I had young guys who were impressionable and wanted to join the fraternity and would do anything to be a part of it did not do good things for my character. And the fact that, I had just aligned myself with, different individuals who I didn't know. And I'm not saying the guys on my campus, but I'm saying like globally around the USA. Now I had aligned myself with individuals who I didn't know, but now, when I see you, we're part of a bond and a brotherhood. And some of these guys, just being real, were not the most savory characters. And so you find yourself involved in things that you shouldn't be. Now, could I have avoided that? Absolutely. Do I blame the fraternity for that? I do not. Those are my decisions. And those were the things that I struggled with. And so I had to remove myself from that. Now, at the time, did I blame the fraternity? Yes, I did. And because of that, I said, I denounced this. I don't want anything to do with this. I left it. I left the state. I pieced out my chapter, went to another school, and just tried to live for Jesus. I did not formally tell them, hey, I'm done with this. I just kind of let it go. And that was the end of the story. So I was quiet about it for years. But as the years have progressed, I've grown, I've learned, I've processed some things. And my views have changed. I don't see it as, evil as I did at that point in time. Matter of fact, I can see where on some end of the spectrum, it can be very beneficial for the community and for other people. But on the other end of the spectrum, I can see it being idolatry for others. So where am I at today? Well, before I get to that, let's break down the history of this whole ordeal. All right, y'all. So I lock in very easily with my morning routine. Like I got my mornings tight. I use AG1 and I've told you about it. It gets me right. But nighttime, I've had to work on my nighttime ritual lately. When the day slows down, I started reaching for something new. It's new from AG1. It's called AGZ. It's like a melatonin-free drink. Herbs, minerals, adaptogens help you wind down naturally, not knock you out. It just helps your body ease into rest. My journey with anxiety, tour life, kids, business, my mind just doesn't stop at night. So AGZ has kind of helped me chill before bed. It's a part of the rhythm now. The lights off, the AGZ in the cup. Sometimes you can drink it warm. I like mine wine cold, but it just signals that the day's done. And it's got a smooth herbal taste, no sugar, no fake flavors. The combo of magnesium and saffron will support your body's ability to rest and recharge. So listen, if you want to turn down your stress, you want to focus on getting the rest you need, head to drinkag1.com/Lecrae. They will send you a free frother. So go to drinkag1.com/Lecrae. Hope it works for y'all. Bless. As it pertains to historically Black fraternities and organizations, the first one was started in 1904. Aha, I knew all you alphas out there were going to be like, no, that's not true. We're the first. You're not the first. Sigma Phi Pi is actually the first African-American fraternity. And it was started in 1904 by 6 extraordinary Black men, but they were graduates. They had graduated from Harvard Medical School, Philadelphia School of Dentistry. These were some brilliant guys in 1904. Now you have to remember, slavery had just ended, like not even 30 years before that, right? So this is a unique time and space for a Black man to have gone to college. I mean, college, let alone go to Harvard and graduate and become a doctor. And so the rarity of this is exceptional. Like the fact that they existed was like super rare and super unique. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to create a society of sorts, a connection point of sorts, a circle where they could communicate with each other, help each other, motivate each other, inspire each other. You've got to think at this point in time, houses are being burned down, people are being lynched, killed. You know, people are upset that African Americans can read, let alone go to college. You know what I mean? Go to college, let alone read, excuse me. For them, it was a matter of creating some sense of unity, connectivity, and a support group to help each other thrive in these conditions and at this time. So this fraternity focused on the excellence that they had and giving themselves a sense of pride. Now, also you have to remember that they're also looking at fraternities and sororities and fraternal orders that were started in Europe long before this. And for them, as they're following this model of prestige and education, they're looking at Europe as the model. So they're not going to create something out of a vacuum. They're just modeling what they've already seen. What do the high societies and European cultures create? Fraternal orders. So that's what they're doing. They're creating their own fraternal order because they are trying to function at a higher level than they've been exposed to. As time progresses, more of these organizations pop up. 1906, Alpha Phi Alpha, 1908, Alpha Kappa Alpha, 1911, Kappa Alpha Psi. And these are still people who are not too far removed from slavery. And it is exceptional that they are enrolled in college. Now, Kappa Alpha Psi specifically started on the campus of Indiana University. 1911, okay, guys, that's a historically white college. There are now Black individuals on this campus. They are not thought highly of. They're not integrated with. They are looked down upon. More than likely, they were not even allowed to sit in the same classrooms as their peers. I wouldn't even be surprised if they had to sit outside, if their desks were not up to par. So there was a sense of creating cultural pride and worth and value, even though they were being demeaned and looked down upon on this campus and in broader society. So what they're doing is they're creating something to demonstrate that they can be and should be esteemed and seen as valuable and educated and just as smart as their white peers. From there, they, are using Latin and Greek because those were the classic languages. Now, Black culture today sees the Greek as like some sort of mythology and people moving into deity worship. And when you join a fraternity, you're now a part of some, mythological deity worship. When the truth of the matter is there's no Greek deities involved. The reason why the letters are Greek is because they are trying to mirror what they thought were the classic languages of excellence and achievement, right? That is what was highlighted. the Greeks were seen as the educated class or the educated group of people. And so other Europeans similarly grabbed Greek letters in terms of, their fraternities and sororities. So of course, the black people did the exact same thing. They're using the Greek letters. This does not mean they're worshiping Greek gods. There's no oaths to Greek gods. There's no oaths to any other gods. As a matter of fact, most, if not all, of the founders of these organizations were practicing Christians. So could there have been some syncretism going on there down the line in terms of idolatry, of academics or something like that? Maybe, but I can guarantee you there was no secret desire to weave in the worship of a Greek deity or to create some sort of demonic secret society. If anything, you have individuals who are being looked down upon, who need to create a fraternal order so that they can thrive and survive and demonstrate to the world that they are just as civic-minded, intelligent, and leaders in their own community. Now, what I believe has taken place specifically here and now is that a lot of the black community, because we come from the roots of African spirituality, we are a lot more hesitant about things invading our supernatural space, so to speak, right? There's a lot of fear in Christian circles because we want to protect this faith that has been abused, mistreated. We've had prosperity preachers. We've had a slavery Bible. We've been manipulated and mistreated with truth for so long. We've had ancient practices like hoodoo and voodoo infiltrate us. We've had witch doctors and so many tribal things that have tried to come in and, intersect with our faith or put our faith, under attack. And so, of course, we're protective and we don't want anything to come in. I remember just as a hip hop artist, people saying, hey, hip hop is of the devil. You shouldn't do that. And in reality, we know what the scripture says, that nothing is inherently evil, right? Like wood is not inherently evil. It's all things, the Psalm says that everything is from God, right? And it's good. The earth is the Lord's. The earth is the Lord's and everything therein. So I think we have to do away with this kind of idea that everything is scary and is going to give us the cooties. I look at biblical examples like Naaman. I look at, how he had some cultural, practices that would have been looked upon as idolatry or syncretism, but God met him where he was. God didn't say, oh, no. We can't have any kind of relationship. I can't heal you. Outside of this. We're not talking about Achan, who's literally has a real idol that he worships. He thinks it's a god in the camp. We're not talking about idols like Baal worship. We're not talking about, something that we're praying to, hoping that it blesses us. There was no point in time in my initiation process where I was to look at my fraternity or any idol or any god other than the God of creation for help or sustainability. I never anticipated anything else blessing me. Now, can people make idols out of a fraternity or sorority? Absolutely. In the same way you can make an idol out of your phone or your money or your job, of course. But it's not an overt or intentional thing that the fraternity or sorority itself brings to play. I know some Christians raise a lot of concern about the secret oaths. Matthew 5:34-37 teaches that your yes should be yes, your no should be no, but not all vows are condemned in scripture. Just so you know that. Context matters. And a lot of these Black Greek letter organizations, their oaths typically emphasize service and scholarship and community activism, brotherhood, sisterhood, not idolatry. Like literally, there's oaths that are about doing the work of the kingdom. There's mention of the kingdom. In most of these organizations' rituals and processes, I won't speak of mine, but from what I've heard about others, there's a Bible involved. And so there's a desire to elevate God in the midst of this and to say, hey, we want to stand on the principles of God as we move forward as a group of brothers or a group of sisters. Now, Here's the other thing I want us to just think about. Okay, let's be consistent, right? Because that's part of the issue. We're really not that consistent. There's a lot of us who would be proud if our children were accepted into the National Honor Society or Phi Beta Kappa, right? Honor fraternities. We would not look at that as it's demonic or sinful. Why? Right? It's still a fraternity. There's not the same level of scrutiny with those. And the reason why I think that is because people are seeing some of the godless actions of fraternity and sorority members, right? They're seeing some of the debauchery, some of the wildness, some of the sinfulness and worldliness, and associating what people are doing with the organization itself. That should not be the case. In the same way you may see a church and some people acting out of character and out of pocket, and that'll make you say, I don't think church is a good thing. But you can't do that, okay? The fraternities and sororities were not created as organizations for debauchery, for hazing, for wilding out. That's not what they were created for. Now, do people do that? Absolutely. And I had to remove myself from that environment because I didn't want to roll like that. And that's why I would tell my kids, I don't think it's a good idea, because more than likely your campus, is going to be full of young people who are having a great time and they want to wild out and they want to do all these things. And I would say, hey, if you want to do community service, join the church. You want to have brotherhood and sisterhood, join a community group at the church. You want to be a part of civic outreach, so on and so forth. There's plenty of organizations that'll give you the opportunity. You don't have to be part of an undergrad fraternity or sorority in order to do that. That's what I would tell my kids. Doesn't mean that there are not some chapters where people are not wilding out, where people are not doing crazy stuff. I'm just saying that if the odds are there, I would probably say, hey, kids, I don't think you should do it. Maybe go grad chapter. You know what I'm saying? Which I know is different. Okay. So first of all, I got brands on me. So I pledged. But if somebody is saying, hey, I don't want to go through that whole process, but I still want to do the work, why would we look down upon them? Like, you want to mentor young kids, you want to give them guidance and wisdom, you want to be civic minded, you want to volunteer. Why am I going to look down on you because you did not go through a pledging process in the same way that I did? I'm not a fan of that personally. I know that draws a line in the sand and some people are going to look at me crazy for it, but I just don't think it's necessary. You want to pledge somebody? Do it like the military. Why beat people up? Make them do push-ups, jumping jacks. Get them in good shape. How about we do that? How about we do that in order to take people through a process? Let's get some jumping jacks. Let's get some sit-ups. What you're going to have at the end of that pledging process are people who are fit and healthy with good cardiovascular systems. Maybe let's try that. I think there can be some redemption. I think we can find individuals who love the Lord, who want to be a part of these organizations and want to do the right thing. I don't think you have to, say these things are demonic in and of themselves. Okay, this is me trying to be a responsible parent. Sometimes you get to a place where you're like, I got a plan for everything except for the most unfortunate circumstance, which is not being here, right? What's your plan for your family if you're no longer around? And as a dad, that thought hit me one day when I was looking at my kids, like, man, if life took a turn, would they be secure? And that's when I got serious about their future, emotionally, mentally, and financially. I got serious about term life insurance. And honestly, I thought the process was going to be complicated, but I found Fabric by Gerber Life. They made it very simple. You can literally do it all online, just sitting on your couch, and you'll be covered in under 10 minutes. No health exam, just a few questions. It made it super easy for busy parents like me, like you probably. You're juggling work, you got kids, you got dreams, and you're young and you're healthy. If that's you, then now is definitely the time to lock in because you get low rates. And if you've already got something through your job, that coverage may not follow you if you leave. The cool thing about Fabric is it's backed by Gerber Life. They've been trusted by families for over 50 years. You're going to get a 30-day money-back guarantee. No pressure, no risk. What's the catch? No catch. Just join the other thousands of parents protecting their families with Fabric. So you can apply in minutes at meetfabric.com/Lecrae. That's MEET fabric.com/Lecrae. Policies are issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. It's not available in certain states and prices are subject to underwriting and health questions. See you there. So I'm gonna check out a couple clips. I think they may be helpful.
We as musicians, let's just talk about people, musicians and singers, especially those who, and even churches, who put a record out and get a Grammy nomination. You go right to the Grammys, put a tux on and celebrate an organization that will celebrate God and the devil. And so we as artists, we go into these corporations, and a lot of the corporations, oh no, this is a gospel record company, but then they're distributed by a secular record company. And the money that we make for them promotes the devil's stuff as well. And the devil's money promotes us. That's a whole nother thing. Yeah. But I've been watching it, so I see stuff that's just hypocritical.
My man said hypocritish. I like that. Uncle Fred said hypocritish. But he's right. I mean, that's the thing is I think we're just not consistent, right? Like literally, if you are buying Nikes, you are in some shape, form, or fashion contributing to something that you don't want to be a part of. I can promise you that. If you are excited about your Grammy, you got to know that the recording industry believes stuff that you do not believe, right? So you're either going to have to become the type of like John the Baptist and the type of person that's going to become like a desert father and be away from society altogether, or you're going to have to learn how to navigate it, right? When we see Jesus approached by the Pharisees and they say, hey, here's a coin. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to pay taxes or nah? What are you going to do? Because this is, paying allegiance to Rome. And he looks at it and he says, give to Caesar what's his. And what he's saying is like, Caesar's face is on this coin. So it's his. Give it to him. It belongs to him. But the image of God is on us. So let's give ourselves to God. Whether you are at work, in a fraternity, at college, whatever, your life belongs to the Lord. So you're still accountable for what you're doing with your life. There's no spooky hocus pocus thing happened when you went through your initiation process that the blood of Christ cannot deal with, right? So some people are saying, oh, you got a covenant on you now and you're cursed. So do we believe that Coretta Scott King, Thurgood Marshall, all these people were cursed? Like, do we believe that? I was going to say Martin Luther King, but y'all probably like, that's why he got shot. All of them died. They weren't all killed. You're going to die too. That's the curse that we're all under. The point I'm trying to make is, do we believe that every person who's gone through this process, W.E.B. Du Bois, like all these leaders, have entered into a covenant with the devil? All these prominent preachers and pastors and thinkers and leaders and contributors to our freedom and who've done amazing things for God, do we really believe that they were hindered from being all they could have been because they joined a fraternity or a sorority? I do not. And I think we're inconsistent when we say things like that.
Bishop said, if you're a part of it and you have allegiance to it, you're going to hell. I don't care all these Greeks and these signs and this, that, and other. Well, if that's the case, then there are a few things that each one of you all do every single day. There are some words you have said every single day of your life. You've said one of these words, if not two or three of these words, since you could talk. It's named after deities. We don't have no problem with it. The first word I'm going to give you is Sunday. Sunday, named after the Greek god. Every time you say Suna, you're saying Sunday. You're talking about the goddess personified. The next one is Monday, god of the moon. Yet we say, hey, can you meet us tomorrow? I don't go in on Monday. So now you know. So what y'all gonna do? I'm gonna still say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and they're named after all of them, all Greek gods. I'm gonna keep saying it. And the Lord know I'm not honoring no Greek god.
I think Uncle Fred makes a good point. The days of the week are pagan deities. We do pledge allegiance to the flag. We live in, have you been to a sports game? If that's not worship, I don't know what is. I don't think our ticket to heaven is canceled because of those allegiances. I do think that God challenges us to guard our hearts and to, tear out the idols that we may be gravitating toward. So maybe that's the case. But I don't think there's an intentional worship of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I am a Houston Texans fan. There's not an intentional worship. I do get mad when they lose. I do get upset when I see plays I don't like. There's no intentional worship happening there. And in the same regard with Black Greek letter organizations, there's no intentional worship happening. I promise you, no one is walking into those rooms, into those organizations with the intention of bowing down and worshiping a God that will bless them, that they can serve. I do think that we use things like money, like prestige, like power, and we use opportunities like jobs and becoming a member of a team or an organization to elevate our social status, and that can be dangerous. But at the end of the day, I think we're inconsistent. I mean, Nike is the goddess of victory. So why are you wearing Nikes? Have you pledged allegiance to the God? We're all walking around worshiping the goddess of victory every time you put them Nikes on. I just want you to know that. So here's what I will say, though. I don't believe that there is some sort of hex or curse or satanic oath that we're putting ourselves through. I do believe that bad company corrupts good morals. I do believe you could be joining hands with a group of individuals who don't have your best interests in mind. I do believe if you know the character of these people and it's unsavory or it's not godly, and you're going to hang out with them 24/7, they will have a bigger influence on you than you will have on them. And for that reason, I think it becomes a Romans 14 issue. And when you look at Romans 14, it says, "Accept the one whose faith is weak without quarreling over disputable matters." So if some people think this is wrong and you shouldn't do it, don't argue with them. It's disputable. It's not salvation. It's not something that is your faith is hinged upon. It says one person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. What Paul is saying is, listen, some of us can eat whatever, right? There was a issue at the time where, hey, this meat may be sacrificed to demons. It came from a temple where they sacrificed it to demons. And people say, don't eat that meat. It was in that temple where demons were worshiped. Do not eat it. And Paul is saying, listen, some of us know the meat doesn't have a curse on it, but some of us are struggling with that. And listen, Paul says, the one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not. The one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does, for God has accepted them. Some of us are going to join fraternities and sororities. It's not our place, if we think it's wrong, to sit back and judge them, especially if they do not see the error in it. They are being faithful to the Lord. They're trying to serve. And some of us are going to see those people who feel like they should not be joining fraternities and sororities, and it's wrong. And you're going to want to fight them. You're going to want to argue with them. You're going to want to prove your point. Don't do that. Let them have their view. It's okay. Let them have their view. But this is not a matter for the church to be squabbling over. It's really not. It's not. It's a very, very tertiary issue. It's not a primary issue. Our faith in Christ is not hinged upon this. And don't let anybody fearmonger you into believing that it is. Your faith is not hindered because you are a part of a Black Greek letter organization. The other thing I love is when Paul says this: one person considers one day more sacred than another. Another considers every day alike. Each of them should be fully convinced in their own mind. Whoever regards one day as special does so to the Lord. Whoever eats meat does so to the Lord if they give thanks to God. And whoever abstains does so to the Lord and gives thanks to God. If you are joining a fraternity and sorority and your desire is to honor God and serve God, you know in your heart if that's true. I know it wouldn't be true of me as a 19, 20-year-old. It would be true of me now. Right? It would be true as a 40-plus-year-old man. If I'm going to be active in my fraternity, I only have godly intentions. I'm not out here trying to wild out. I'm out here trying to build the community and do good things. And so I do. I feel free. If I want to join the alumni chapter in my community, I feel totally free to do that. If I want to do that tomorrow, I feel the freedom to be able to do that. I do not think it's sin. However, I know there's some people who do. But the Bible says don't judge. Don't you judge me. Don't judge me. And I won't look at you with contempt either. So let's check out this other clip because I think it adds some seasoning to what we're talking about.
Jesus is the one that delivered you. So Jesus is the one that we articulate, that we preach, that we communicate. Because I think it's sincere in a lot of people that they are preaching do's and don'ts because they just want to make sure that they're good with the Lord. I think some of us know what it's like to be distant from him. Some of us know and have experienced disappointing him. And so we just want to make sure that we're good with God. But what I think when you don't believe or have worked through, even just Romans 1-8, that there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Like if you haven't worked through your justification and being made right with God, then you start leaning into law more than you lean into the Spirit. And when you lean into law more than you do with the Spirit, that comes through in how you preach. And so you will think that you are preaching Christ when you are preaching law. And so I think do the work of saying, if I want to share the truth and I want to warn people about what's not right, I want to warn people of what's not faithful, you have to balance that with, let me say this. When you look at my ministry, I kind of go in on a lot of stuff, right? So I'm not a Gracie preacher, right? I'm not a just fly. But I understand that the biggest incentive for obedience is a solid theology of Christ's character. So if you listen to my sermons, if you listen to my articulation, I am always presenting him as best and as better. That's a part of my language, is he is best and he is better, which motivates you from a place of worship to do what's right instead of from a place of fear. And I think that's what I'm seeing, is that we are motivating people into righteousness through fear instead of through reverence. And I think that's not sustainable.
I think she nailed it. And the reason why I like that clip is because reverence and worship should make our decision in this particular area, not fear. I think fear mongering is what's happening in our community, where people are saying, oh, shoot, you got some roots on you now. You're going to be hindered. You entered into a covenant that Christ can't defeat. And man, if you are in love with Jesus, if your life is to be pursuant of him, I think you'll be fine. I have not written a letter to Kappa Alpha Psi and said, I formally denounce. I have not told my frat brothers, I no longer want to be a part of this. I have not carved out the brand in my arm. I have not stopped associating or throwing up the yo's or twirling the cane. However, God has blessed me tremendously, shown his grace tremendously, granted me the opportunity to see him and live for him and worship him. And I don't feel as if there's some kind of curse that's hanging over my head because of something I did 20 years ago, right? I don't think that's the case. Now, are there people who worship and idolize their fraternities and sororities? Absolutely. They should stop. Are there people who should have nothing to do with them because they can't handle the company that they would keep? Absolutely. And are there some of us who are going to be just fine? Absolutely. Know thyself. Ask the Lord. As for me in my house, probably wouldn't advise my kids, but for completely different reasons. Hope that helps. God bless.
This is The Deep End with Lecrae.